Hello and welcome to today's YouTube video. I'm going to be showing you how to dial in a sweet rockabilly tone nice and quickly. Okay, we're not going to get too into the weeds here. I'm going to show you that it doesn't have to be difficult. It's a lot about what you like as well. One thing I haven't spoken about in a lot of my videos is how I like to use an overdrive pedal or pedals. So I will be discussing that in probably the most depth, but essentially we're going to be plugging in, setting up a tone, and making it sound cool, hopefully. Let's get to it. Okay, so these pedals here, including a very common Tubescreamer, okay, TS9, very classic, and this Mystery Brain BS301, are pretty much all you need. Now, I'm not saying you need to have these particular pedals, but something along these lines. There's many great overdrive pedals on the market that you could use, and there are many great slapback pedals. You guys know I'm a fan of the Mystery Brain. It's easy to get a good sound with. I love the preamp options and all that sort of thing. But yeah, there's plenty. So for example, a little pricey, but the Strymon El Capistan is a great pedal, of course. You've got something like this Memphis Sun, which is a great pedal as well. I dig this just especially for the delay. But keep in mind, that's a digital delay. So just like a Boss digital delay, there's obviously coloring going on with that. You don't have to get too fussy about analog delay or drag a tape machine around with you. You can get great tones with any good digital delay. And for overdrive pedals, something generally in the Tubescreamer vein, like like an OD2. So this yellow one over here, you can sort of see hiding, is I've used that extensively as well. That's a great pedal. It copped a bit too much voltage at some point, and I think it kind of burnt out. It's a little funny. I need to actually check if it still works. But I use a blues driver quite regularly as well, a Boss blues driver, fantastic pedal. So I'm going to show you how I like to use a drive pedal and why, and I'll explain that, because obviously it's going to be a little different to a clean tone, but I don't want anything too broken up as well. So I'll get into that in a moment. So I'll show you my clean tone. I'm plugged straight into this Supro behind me. I'm a really big fan of 6L6 valves. I think if you think about a lot of the mid-50s recordings, those guys would have been using something with a 6L6 in them, like all the Fender Tweed stuff. Okay, that was a very common valve at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if you know something else, I would love to hear below. I am not the authority on all of this gear nerd stuff. I sort of like what I like. So the one thing I want to tell you about that amp, though, is it's got no EQ. You plug in, that's your sound. That's one of the reasons I've grabbed the Telecaster today too, because it's kind of like a blank canvas, a very good blank canvas, but it's nice and bright across the top strings, and the tight focus bottom end is really nice for, lots of different genres, and we're going to color it all up with the pedals anyway. And of course, a lot of tone comes from the way that you play. Okay, you can't change the colors of the tones that you're using, just the overall tonality, or the overall tone and timbre. So keep that in mind, and there's plenty of great resources on my channel for learning more about that. So if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell so you know when I release a video. Moving right along, the first thing I want to show you guys is getting a nice delay sound, because you might like a really clean tone with a bit of delay. I've got other videos on this, but stick around, because I want to talk straight after about how we use the drive pedal and why. But to get a good tone out of your delay, switch the echo on. Okay. Now, what I like to do, it's a little challenging because it's going to depend on the tempo that you're playing. Okay, so I like a nice tight slap. It doesn't have to be too tight, but I have a general rule. If you really want a big slap, okay, and you want it really clear, it needs to sort of sit right in between the notes in an even way. So if our tempo is 1, 2, 3, 4, we want it to bounce on the and in between. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So we want this duck, like on the and, one and, or even on the one E. Something that makes sense timing-wise. So what I'll do to demonstrate, I'm going to turn the tape mix all the way up, which this pedal's actually delightfully subtle. It's not too... Oh, when you really crank it, you know it's there, but it's not like some pedals where it's intense. So see that little bounce there? It's really nice when you make it a note that falls right in between the notes of the tempo that you're playing. So if we're playing at 200 BPM, which would be pretty quick, as you can imagine, that slap is going to be basically at 200 BPM. It's going to be right in between. So I couldn't tell you the milliseconds and all that sort of thing. I've never worried about that. I basically get the timing. So if I want to play something slower, I'm going to slow that down so that that repeat falls right between the notes evenly. So we turn the time down. Other way. I'm facing the wrong way. Okay, that's a really long delay. Okay, so that's a really cool sound and a great way to set your sound up, you know, and the only problem is obviously when you go to different tempos, you're going to want to tailor that. So a tap pen, like I can just reach down, hit it, hear the sound, and I know exactly where I want it. So I'm often changing it during gigs. But if you really want good control of that, delay with a tap tempo is not a bad idea because you can just tap it at double the speed of the tempo of the song. Okay, so if you're playing a song at 120, you're going to do a 240 tap, and it's gonna put the note right in between. I think that's right. That's right. Yep. I'm having to think about the maths there. So I'm gonna play a moderate tempo now. So I would just hitting the wrong one. Let's try that again. Shorten it up a little bit. Let's say I go dun 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 in between. About there, okay? Now keep in mind, I've got the tape fully mixed up there, so it's going to sound a little bit invasive. So I'm happy with that tone. I'm happy with that tempo for what I'm playing right there. I'm going to bring that mix down considerably, so it's a little less invasive. Gotta love that sound. Now, of course, if you've got lots of different songs and you just want something that's going to get you through the set without having to constantly play with it, tighten it up and bring the slap down, bring the volume of the slap down. So on this pedal, the volume of the slap is called the tape mix. I'm going to pull that down. Let's put it at 12. So that's pretty modest. And we're going to get away with plenty with that. Okay, even if our tempos end up all over the place. Keep the repeats to 1 or 2. Okay, beyond that it can get very mushy, by the way. So 1 repeat. Well, there's actually quite a few there, but it trails off very smoothly, so you would probably get away with it. Again, depends on the delay that you're using, but if it's not subtle, you're going to hear that, okay? Let's bring the time down. So you don't want it too tight because it will just sound like a doubled guitar. I like a little bit of separation. There, that's tight. It's not mixed too high. Great tone. Love it. So that's my advice. The more variation you're going to have in speeds and stuff, you can, the tighter you want it and probably the less backed off. You really can't overdo that slapback delay if you're playing really fast stuff or if you're getting into a psychobilly territory. You can hear you start getting interfering rhythms. You've really got to watch out for that. So you can either tighten it up and try and figure out where that's going to sit tempo-wise. So you make it a really short slap that fits in, like... Okay, I'm now mouthing the sounds for you when I could just change the pedal. So that's real tight. You can hear I have to stop the note so you can hear the second. And that's nice, okay? It's not an exact science. You don't have to get a calculator out for every song. You really got to use your ear and just tweak that knob and listen for where that slap is and play. And if it becomes overbearing, you can either tighten it up or you can pull the mix down. So that pretty much concludes what I wanted to talk about with getting your delay tone. Let's talk about the overdrive side of it because, like I said, I haven't really spoken about this in videos, but the way I like to use a drive pedal is think about those old recordings where they were playing in a studio with a band and you can hear those amps singing. You can tell they've been cranked and they've got that edge of breakup tone. I love that sound. Like you listen to old Carl Perkins stuff. And look, a bit of it could also be where the microphone is. The mic might be being pushed. The recording equipment might be being pushed. Or maybe it was just a few microphones in the room. I'm not sure. But what I do want to emulate is the sound, that sort of crisp but slightly muddy tone of the earlier recordings, okay? And the way I like to do that is with a tube screamer. I mean, think about it. It's called a tube screamer. The idea is that we're getting a tone that sounds like the tubes are being pushed, like they've been cranked and turned up. So I like to use it to fatten the tone like some of those old recordings. It can get a little driven, but my main goal is a smooth kind of slightly broken up push tone, almost like a clean tone pushed to the edge. So we're not talking, like a Metallica tone. We definitely don't want a metal zone or anything like that. But we're talking, for example, like Lonesome Train and a lot of those really awesome recordings where you can hear that the tone's a bit thick and syrupy. So I'll put it on. Okay, so that's thick straight away. You can hear it's really thickened up the tone. Alright, now that might be a little too crunchy even for my liking, so let's just dial it down a little bit. I'm just going to take the gain. I'm going to wind it right down. Okay, so we're just going to look for that sweet spot. Going to give a little more tape mix. We'll go back to those earlier rhythms I was doing with a longer slap. I'm also going to bring the level up on my tube screamer. That's a good way to clean it up. As you bring the level up, it will give it a bit more headroom because we're not compressing it by pulling it down. Yeah, now we're talking. Excellent. And so you can see we're getting a nice fat tone. I'm playing a tally. Doesn't even have humbuckers or anything like that. Just good old single coils. But we're getting a nice, thick, old school sounding rockabilly tone. So, look, Cliff Gallup's tone was actually quite clean, but you can still hear that sort of bright punchiness or a little bit of that. There's almost like a fatness in all of those recordings because things were getting pushed. Again, whether it was the amp or the microphones, I don't know, but I love to simulate that live just using a Tubescreamer and getting it dialed in. We can go even cleaner, and there are pedals that are going to give us a cleaner drive. We can use a clean boost, actually. Where's that gone? One of my students, one of my legendary students lent me this. This is great, and I was actually going to plug this in, but I did want some drive because I like that. A little bit of grit, doesn't hurt. But that's definitely a really good option just for a very clean boost. So I'm going to pull that gain down a little more, and I'm going to put the level up a little bit more. I might even put the tone up a tiny bit more, okay? Which is great, having those options when you've got an amp with just a single volume. I will talk quickly too about your guitar and amp setup as well, but yeah. So let's have a listen to that. It's a great tone. It's a really, really cool tone. I like that sound. If you have a different way, I'd actually really love to hear it. But before I wrap up the video, in terms of your guitar tone, you hear people talk all the time about, rolling your volume back and cleaning up the tone a little bit. Let's try it. Yes, but then you lose a little bit of tops, and I hate that. I actually really, really like having tops there. So I keep that open. The only time I bring that down is if I set my stuff up particularly loud, okay? And then when I'm not soloing or I'm not a main feature in terms of the riffing, I bring that down. And then when I start soloing, I'm able to just turn that up. It just gives me a little bit of room. But the other thing I might do is set up a third pedal, a boost pedal, or maybe even another drive pedal that I take nearly all the drive off and use it as a clean boost, or get yourself a clean boost. And then you get full open throttle on your tone at all times, and when you're solo, you've got a pedal to step on to bring it up. But yeah, I don't mind riding the volume because I don't mind losing a little bit of tops actually when I'm just sitting back and doing little bits and pieces in the background. I don't mind that. That's okay because I'm not the main feature anyway. I don't want to be drilling over the singer or other parts of the song. So keep that in mind. It's nice to just use that volume and roll it up. Or yeah, of course, use a boost pedal of some sort. So, and in terms of your tone, man, I just have that thing up on full all the time. It's a guitar. I want to hear the guitar. I want bright tones. I don't want to be rolling stuff off. I'm not playing jazz. You can see I'm warming up the tone with that pedal if I want that fatter sound. So yeah, that's just not my thing. So, and in terms of your amp, the settings on your amp, it is so much a case of just salt to taste, okay? You do what you like. Obviously, if you're not hearing enough treble, turn your treble up. If you want a little bit more bass, turn your bass up. If you've got the option of having mids in any of your gear and you want more sort of a focused nasally sound coming from your tone, bring the mids up, okay? The one good bit of advice I will give you, though, that was hard-earned from a lot of live gigs, is make sure on stage, okay, your sound should be a little more brittle than you expect, because by the time it gets to the audience, it warms up, okay? And once it hits, I don't know, what would you call it, humans, and the room, if it starts hitting people in the room, where they are out there, I guarantee will not be as bright as where you are right in front of it. So make your tone a little bright up here. It might even annoy you a little bit, okay? But it's going to sound much clearer out there, where if you've got a nice warm tone on stage, it's probably muddy out there. So that's it. That's a really useful tip that I had to do a lot of gigs to learn, and actually a good friend of mine, Simon Cotter, who's guitar techs for some amazing bands now. He's a busy guy, including Chris Cheney from The Living End, I believe. Congratulations on that one, mate. He actually pointed that out to me many years ago, and it was very, very useful. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you do or what you think's going to work or works for you, and we can talk about it below. Have a great week. It's warming up here in Australia. Probably getting cooler overseas, I guess. But thanks for your time, and enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you in the next video. Great tone. Love it.